Yes. Firstly, research hypothesis. Research hypothesis means the tentative answer of the problem. It is called a research hypothesis. In a research hypothesis, explain and set of our research variables to be studied, whatever may be research variables that is essential in a hypothesis. Means research variables play a very important role in your research hypothesis. The structure of hypothesis and testing of hypothesis, that is the essential part of a research process. Means which types of research hypothesis we want, and what was the merits and demerits of that particular structure of that research hypothesis, in which types of research design and which types of research hypothesis is essential in which types of research process, isn't it? In depending variables and independent variables, these are the two elements of your research hypothesis, or each and every types of research hypothesis. These are the two elements is essential. The number of variables that will be a change, the structure of variables and steps of variables and formation of variables, that will be a change to types of research hypothesis, isn't it? Yes. Last time we discussed regarding research variables, and this time we discuss about the research hypothesis and types of research hypothesis. A research hypothesis means a considerable as an intellectual guess or tentative guess or a tentative answer of the problem or tentative prediction that gives a direction of the research scholar to an answer of the research questions or answer of the tentative objectives, research objectives or research questions, whatever may be in formulate in your research synopsis. Depend upon the, sometime researcher formulate research questions and sometime researcher formulate research objectives and aims. That depend upon the your format, your research synopsis. You want to formulate research questions or research objectives or research goals, whatever may be, as per as the concern of the structure of research hypothesis. Means generally the tentative answer, whatever may be, that format is essential, or research variables is essential in your research hypothesis, or tentative guess of tentative answer or tentative prediction of that question, whatever may be question, doesn't matter, isn't it? But to which is ideal hypothesis, how to formulate an ideal hypothesis with basic ability essential in a researcher, how to formulate a true hypothesis, genuine hypothesis, valid hypothesis, or 100% true hypothesis. That is a foundation of your research hypothesis, isn't it? Means foundation of your research hypothesis, that is essential. Means sometime your academical ability are different and research ability are different, and a research ability, like so many research ability, is essential in a research scholar, isn't it? Means thinking ability, logical ability, analytical ability, observation ability, skill, various types of skill is essential at the time of formulating a research hypothesis. How to formulate a ideal research hypothesis? What was the foundation of your ideal research hypothesis, isn't it? Which essential background of ideal formation of a research hypothesis? Means your previous experiences. Regarding your previous experiences, that was the one foundation of your research hypothesis, isn't it? Our scientific observation of each and every factors, each and every procedure, that is essential. Means person or researcher, doesn't matter he is literature or he is not literature, illiterature, doesn't matter, but his observation is a scientific observation, that is a foundation of your research hypothesis, isn't it? Or your logical abilities, your thinking abilities, your solution abilities, these are the some natural abilities found in each and every person. That was the foundation of your research hypothesis, isn't it? म्हणजे प्रत्येक जणाकडे ह्या नैसर्गिक क्षमता असतात, नॅचरल ability is essential. means thinking ability, logical ability, scientific observation ability, previous experiences, previous conditions, observations, and that all are the foundation of your research hypothesis. Okay, sometimes some illiterate farmers formulate a true hypothesis, valid hypothesis, means universal hypothesis, because of his previous experiences, his previous observation, analytical studies, scientific observations, and logical abilities of that person, of that illiterate farmers. At that time, these are the some evidences to find out the relationship between previous relations, previous incident. You want to formulate a ideal hypothesis. That time you calculate the previous experiences and previous condition of that particular experiences, and as per as the concern of previous scientific observation, that was the foundation of your research hypothesis, isn't it? म्हणजे तुम्हाला पूर्वी आलेले जे अनुभव आहेत किंवा तुमची नैसर्गिक क्षमता आहेत, that was the foundation of your research hypothesis, isn't it? Means your intellectual ability, these are the foundations. म्हणजे बौद्धिक क्षमता सुद्धा काय पाहिजे. जर बौद्धिक क्षमताच कमी असेल तर वर्षा लेवलचा अंदाज मांडता येणार नाहीये आणि अचूक अंदाज मांडता येणार नाहीये. मीन्स formation of true hypothesis, that is essential foundation, essential background, isn't it? These are the essential background. And you observe the previous question paper as per as the examination views, that is very essential part of the examination views. Each and every previous question paper ask one question on a research hypothesis. Means sometime 10 marks, sometime 50 marks, sometime 20 marks, sometime 12 marks. Mark weight is maybe a change, but each and every previous question paper, one questions asked on a research hypothesis. Means as per as the concern of examination views, these content is very important and very essential in coursework, isn't it? So listen carefully. This session, each and every 24 research scholar focus on that conceptual understanding as per as the concern of examination views. And lastly, types of research hypothesis. So many times ask what is research hypothesis, explain the various types of research hypothesis with suitable example. Such type of question asked in previous question paper, isn't it? Types of research hypothesis. These are the 6 types of research hypothesis generally used in each and every research process, isn't it? Each and every research process. At the time of situations and structure of your research variables that depend upon the types of research hypothesis, isn't it? Means what was the ideal characteristics of ideal hypothesis, true hypothesis, isn't it? Means these are the characteristics of ideal research hypothesis. First one is each and every research hypothesis that should be a testable, that should be a measurable. These are the 2 essential characteristics of each and every research hypothesis. म्हणजे अंदाज हा पडताळता आला पाहिजे. टेस्टेबल, रिसर्च हायपोथेसिस शुड बी अ टेस्टेबल, म्हणजे परिकल्पनेची उकल करता आली पाहिजे. अंदाज म्हणजे त्याला काय, परिकल्पना, असं बऱ्याच पुस्तकामध्ये मराठीच्या सांगितलेलं आहे. और research hypothesis that should be a measurable, isn't it? Means same way the ideal characteristics of research variables, they as it is based in a ideal research hypothesis. Means research hypothesis that should be a depend upon the your research questions or research objectives or research aim and objectives. Means your research objective are different and your prediction are different. That is not ideal research hypothesis. Means your research hypothesis should be a depend upon your research objectives. Should be a depend upon your research objectives. Yes. Is it audible? Yes. Anyone tell me?
Yes, sir. You are audible.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes. Means these are the characteristics of ideal research hypothesis. First one is a hypothesis should be a depend upon the research objectives. Second one is a hypothesis should be a testable. Third one is a research variable should be a measurable, and fourth one is a research variables. The relationship between a research variable should be a reflect in your research hypothesis. Whatever may be a depending variables, whatever may be a independent variables, the relationship between that research variables, that should be a reflect in your research hypothesis, isn't it? That should be a reflect in your research hypothesis. That is the most important characteristics of ideal research hypothesis. Means whatever may be a relationship between that research variables, that should be a reflect in your research hypothesis. Means these are the ideal research hypothesis characteristics. These are the 5 ideal research hypothesis characteristics. First one is a that should be a depend upon the research variables. Second should be a that should be a measurable research variable, that should be a measurable. Third one is a that research hypothesis that should be a testable, and the relationship between whatever may be depending variables or independent variables, that should be a reflect in your research hypothesis, isn't it? And the testing of research hypothesis, that should be a very careful mention in your research hypothesis in minimum word and maximum meaningful sentence. That is essential in at the time of formulation of your hypothesis. Each and every words that use a very carefully. Ideal means dual meaning variables that should be avoid in your research hypothesis. जसं बऱ्याच शब्दाच्या 2 किंवा 3 किंवा 4 अनेक अर्थ निघत असतील, that should be avoid in your research hypothesis. जसं दादा खोंडकेचे मराठी पिक्चर बघितले, अनेक अर्थ निघू शकतात. Means dual meaning words that was avoid in your research hypothesis. Meaningful words and very clearful words. Meaningful words and clearful words, or the relationship between whatever may be a number of research variables, that should be a reflect in your research hypothesis. That is a ideal hypothesis characteristics. These are the ideal hypothesis characteristics. म्हणजे आदर्श परिकल्पनेचे ते लक्षणे आहेत. ती उद्दिष्टाधिष्ठ असली पाहिजे, ती परीक्षणक्षम असली पाहिजे, संशोधनातील चल हे जे आहेत हे मापनक्षम असले पाहिजे, किंवा द्विअर्थी किंवा अनेक अर्थाचा शब्द हे आपण टाळले पाहिजे. दीज आर द ideal characteristics of research hypothesis or ideal hypothesis, isn't it? Is it clear? The concept of research hypothesis, are you understand? Yes, anyone tell me?
Yes sir, understand. Yeah.
Yes, very easily, just the definition of hypothesis: tentative answer of the problem or the prediction of the problem. That is called a research hypothesis, isn't it? Like that, tentative or intellectual guess regarding a solution, regarding your problem. That is your hypothesis, whatever may be. Is it sometime directly or non-directly answer? You tentative formulate a tentativity, formulating a prediction, formulating a answer, our intellectual guess. All that words generally used in our research hypothesis. These are the 6 types of research hypothesis generally used in each and every research area, each and every research part. First one is a simple hypothesis, complex hypothesis, empirical hypothesis, null hypothesis, alternative hypothesis, and causal hypothesis. These are the 6 research hypotheses generally used in your various types of research process. First one is a simple hypothesis. What is simple hypothesis? Characteristics of simple hypothesis. Which time researcher use a simple hypothesis, isn't it? म्हणजे 2009 पासूनच्या प्रश्नपत्रिका तुम्ही पाहू शकता. प्रत्येक प्रश्नपत्रिकेमध्ये एक प्रश्न हा हमखास आहे. You find out the previous question paper. Each and every question paper, one question asked on a research hypothesis. Means as per as the concern of examination views, that is very important content of research hypothesis. Types of research hypothesis, characteristics of research hypothesis. What is research hypothesis? Explain the role of research hypothesis in your research process. Such type of questions asked on previous question paper. I will send my Google Drive link, and you download previous question paper, previous content, previous answer papers, and each and every material, digital material or soft material in that Google Drive link. I will send our research coursework group, isn't it? That is helpful for us as per as the concern of examination views. Means whatever may be, what type of questions asked in previous question, as per as the concern of you analyze previous question, you observe previous question, and you formulate your hypothesis regarding a question paper of research methodology. You predict your intellectual guess, your predictions. That is called a research hypothesis. म्हणजे अगोदरच्या प्रश्नपत्रिका व्हायच्या आणि आताच्या प्रश्नपत्रिकेमध्ये कुठल्या कुठल्या प्रश्न रिपीट आलेले आहेत किंवा कोणकोणते कंटेंट महत्वाचे आहेत, which was the important content of previous question paper. That is essential, isn't it? First one is a simple hypothesis. What is simple hypothesis? What was the structure generally used in simple hypothesis, and which types of researcher generally formulate a simple hypothesis, isn't it? Means simple hypothesis generally survey method, historical research method, or experimental research methods, or causal hypothesis or causal research design, or a descriptive research design. Such a type of research design used in research process, that researcher use a simple hypothesis. In simple hypothesis means your research design, whatever may be your research design, one is depending variables and one is independent variables. Minimum two research variables used in your research hypothesis. That hypothesis clearly mention a simple hypothesis. म्हणजे फक्त दोनच चलांचा वापर ज्या परिकल्पनेमध्ये केला जातो त्या परिकल्पनेला साधी परिकल्पना असे म्हणतात. की जनरली only one is depending variables and one is independent variables used in that statement. That statement is considered as a simple hypothesis. Simple hypothesis means very simple. Generally one is dependent variables used and one is independent variables used, isn't it? Like last time we discussed regarding suppose types of fertilizer and plant height. One is independent variables and one is dependent variables, isn't it? Such a type of research hypothesis, that is called a simple research hypothesis. सोपा है, very easily. Researcher use two research variables. One is depending research variables and another is independent variables. The impact of one independent variables on a depending variables, it is called a simple hypothesis. सोपा आहे. एका घटकाचा एका घटकावर होणारा परिणाम ज्या परिकल्पनेमध्ये अभ्यासला जातो त्या परिकल्पनेला आपण साधी परिकल्पना असे म्हणतो. In which statement a researcher to find out the impact of one independent variables on one depending variables, that hypothesis considered as a very simple hypothesis. Very simple, isn't it? Whatever may be the impact of teacher teaching on student learning performance, that is simple hypothesis, isn't it? Impact of last time we discussed regarding impact of sunlight on a human skin, simple hypothesis. One is independent variables and one is depending variables. Only two variables generally used in that statement. It is called a simple hypothesis. Very simple. Are you understand? Yes. Ashwini ji, alag lakshan? Yes. Anyone tell me one example regarding a simple hypothesis? Yes. कोण सांगू शकेल उदाहरण? Kumar sir, are you understand?
Yes, I understand, sir. Yeah.
Yes. You tell me one example regarding a simple hypothesis.
Yeah. I can give you, see.
Yes.
Yeah. Impact of the education level and salary.
Yes.
And salary.
Yes, I got it. Means impact of education level and salary. These are the two variables you can use in your simple hypothesis. Yes, absolutely right. Yes, next one. Are you understand the concept of simple hypothesis? Anyone tell me one example regarding your subject, particularly subject? Yes, कोण सांगतं? कॉमर्स अँड मॅनेजमेंट मधलं उदाहरण. working style of any bank or consumer satisfaction. The impact of working style of any bank on a consumer satisfaction. Consumer satisfaction is one variable, and working style of banking, that is one variable, isn't it? That is a simple hypothesis. This type of hypothesis you want to formulate in your research process, that is called a simple hypothesis, isn't it? Yes, Nilesh ji, you tell me one example regarding a simple hypothesis. Are you understand the structure of simple hypothesis? Yes, Renuka ji. कोण सांगतं? Yes, loudly. Are you there? आहेत का सर्व झोपी गेले?
So impact of price on demand.
Yes, impact of price on demand.
Hello.
Generally, two variables you use in your research process.
Hello.
Right, absolutely right. Yes, Prashant. Prashant ji, loudly unmute your side and tell me one example. चुकू द्या, हरकत नाहीये. That is you are an ideal researcher. You think about this simple hypothesis. You use one is dependent variables and one is independent variables in your process. Yes, Prashant.
Algorithm trading software.
Unmute your side.
Hello.
Yes, sir.
Algorithm trading software to make a decision for trading strategy.
Yes, that is simple hypothesis.
It's a simple.
Yes, you use one is dependent variables and one is independent variables. Right, absolutely right. 100% बरोबर आहे. Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes. You tell me one example of loudly.
Yes. Of
Yes.
Impact of social media in batches attention.
Yes, बराबर है. Impact of social media. That is simple hypothesis. Yes, 100% true. Yes, are you understand all? Wagmare ji, Namrata, are you in class? Renuka ji, Vitthal, Suresh, all researcher, are you understand the structure of simple hypothesis? That is very essential as far as the concern of examination views. Okay, one is important thing. More study, more confusion. No study, no confusion. Only conceptual understanding is important. Whatever may be studies, doesn't matter. You can understand the conceptual understanding. म्हणजे तुम्हाला जास्त अभ्यास पुस्तक वाचवायची गरज नाही. कुठलंही पुस्तक न वाचवता तुम्ही परीक्षा पास झाली पाहिजे. That is ideal characteristics of ideal researcher, isn't it? You focus on a conceptual understanding. More study, more confusion. No study, no confusion. Only conceptual understanding is most important rather than bookish knowledge. You focus on conceptual understanding, isn't it? Yes. Can I move a second type? Second one is a complex hypothesis. Complex hypothesis means more than two hypotheses, whatever may be a depending hypothesis or independent hypothesis, doesn't matter. But more than two hypotheses generally used in your research hypothesis, that hypothesis was a complex hypothesis. That hypothesis was a complex hypothesis. Within 1 minute, I will back. Please wait 1 minute. Yes. Second one is a complex hypothesis. Complex hypothesis means whatever may be more than two variables. That should be a dependent variables, independent variables, doesn't matter. But more than two variables generally used in your research hypothesis, that hypothesis considered as a complex hypothesis. म्हणजे काय, दोन पेक्षा जास्त घटकांचा किंवा चलांचा विचार ज्या परिकल्पनेमध्ये केला जातो त्या परिकल्पनेला संयुक्त परिकल्पना असे म्हणतात. मीन्स मोर दॅन टू व्हेरिएबल्स जनरली यूज इन अ रिसर्च हायपोथेसिस. दॅट टाइप ऑफ रिसर्च हायपोथेसिस कन्सिडर ॲज अ कॉम्प्लेक्स हायपोथेसिस, isn't it? Means sunlight and humidity and another one variables impact on a human skin. That is a complex hypothesis, isn't it? म्हणजे कुठले असतील दोन पेक्षा जास्त घटक वापरलेले आहेत. Means fertilizers and waters, the impact of fertilizer and water on a plant height. That is a complex hypothesis, isn't it? In this PPT, one is dependent variables or independent variables, whatever may be, it doesn't matter. But more than two variables, more than two research variables used in that statement considered as a complex hypothesis, isn't it? दोन पेक्षा जास्त घटकांचा वापर किंवा चलांचा वापर किंवा व्हेरिएबलचा वापर एकच आहे. बाळ्या बबल्या बंट्या जसं म्हणतो तसं की that type of research hypothesis considered as a complex hypothesis, isn't it? The impact of COVID and impact of demand and supply ratio कुठले असेल? कोविडचा आहे आणि कोविडचा डिमांड आणि सप्लायच्या याच्यावर काय परिणाम पडतात हे तुम्ही पाहणार असेल. किंवा मग डिजिटल बँकिंग अँड banking working style impact on consumer satisfaction. That is complex hypothesis. Digital banking format or banking style or banking working style on a consumer satisfaction, whatever may be. Whatever may be, small industries, the impact of internal markets and state level state government strategies on small industries. Whatever may be your area, particularly more than two variables you have to use in that hypothesis. That hypothesis considered as a complex hypothesis, isn't it? Means student self-learning and teachers teaching performance on a student learning outcome. That is complex hypothesis. म्हणजे अनेक घटकांवर होणारा परिणाम पाहत असतो त्या परिकल्पनेला असे काय म्हणतात आपण की कॉम्प्लेक्स हायपोथेसिस असं म्हणतो, isn't it? Are you understand? Borade ji, are you understand the concept of complex hypothesis?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Anyone tell me the example regarding a complex hypothesis? Anuradha ji? Yes. Darshana ji? iPhone. Please change your device name. iPhone कोणाचं नाव आहे त्यांनी फक्त मला हे करा म्हणजे मला कळेल की तू कोणता रिसर्च स्कॉलर आहे. Yes, Satish ji, are you understand? That is the demerits of online teaching learning process.
Sir, example are not. आम्हाला एक्झाम्पल देता येत नाहीये सर, सॉरी.
मॅडम तुम्ही मराठीतून सांगितलं चालतं, फक्त तुम्हाला संकल्पना कळाली की नाही हे मला पाहायचंय. लँग्वेज इज इट डझंट मॅटर, कन्सेप्च्युअल अंडरस्टँडिंग इज मोस्ट इम्पॉर्टंट, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Yes, you tell tell in Marathi. Yes, MNA student, are you understand?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Yes,
you
I
tell,
can-
you tell
can
me.
give you
Yes, you tell me one
example.
Yes.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, impact of macroeconomics factor and investments.
That is simple hypothesis. Only two hypotheses, only two variables.
Factor element macroeconomic factor as inflation, exchange rate.
Yes.
Money factor and investment.
Yes. You can put in that each and every variables, isn't it?
Yes.
That
Yes,
is
sir.
complex hypothesis. More than two variables. Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Loudly say.
Yes, sir. Impact of social media and digital marketing and brand equity.
Yes. That is complex hypothesis. Yes. 100% true. Means, are you understand? Each and every student understand the complex hypothesis, the structure of complex hypothesis, and which time researcher use a complex hypothesis. Means your selection of your statement of your research problem, that was a complex. Means more than two research variables you want to deal in your research process. That time researcher use a complex hypothesis. That time researcher use a complex hypothesis. Means complex hypothesis is more than two variables. Whatever may be 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, whatever may be a research variables, means more than 2 research variables researcher use in your research process. That type of hypothesis is called a complex hypothesis. Very simple. In simple hypothesis, 2 research variables researcher use. Or complex hypothesis, more than 2 research variables you can use in your complex hypothesis. That is called a complex hypothesis. Doesn't matter how many dependent variables, how many independent variables, doesn't matter. म्हणजे ते किती असू शकतात, म्हणजे इंडिपेंडंट किती असू
सर
शकतात.
इन्कम ऑफ द पीपल होऊ शकतं का याचं उदाहरण?
द इम्पॅक्ट ऑफ नाही तुम्हाला काय म्हणायचं मला पूर्ण सांगा समजा
म्हणजे इन्कम भारतातील लोकांची इन्कम वगैरे असं इन्कम स्टेटमेंट तर ते होऊ शकतं का क्रिटिकल हायपोथेसिस?
कॉम्प्लेक्स हायपोथेसिस, क्रिटिकल नाही मॅडम, कॉम्प्लेक्स
हा
हायपोथेसिस.
सॉरी कॉम्प्लेक्स हायपोथेसिस.
तुम्हाला अनेक 3 घटक घ्यावे लागतील, म्हणजे उत्पन्नाचा किंवा भारतीय लोकांच्या किंवा शेतकऱ्याच्या उत्पन्नाचा त्याच्या शैक्षणिक आणि सामाजिक घटकावर होणारा परिणाम. Isn't it? रेणुका जी, एनी क्वेश्चन? येस रेणुका मॅम, आर यू इन क्लास? म्हणजे मॅडम तुम्ही म्हणता ते बरोबर आहे की मोर दॅन 2 फॅक्टर्स, म्हणजे 2 पेक्षा अनेक घटकांचा, म्हणजे शेतकऱ्याच्या उत्पन्नाचा त्याच्या कौटुंबिक घटकावर, सामाजिक घटकावर किंवा शैक्षणिक घटकावर होणारा परिणाम. द इन्कम ऑफ फार्मर ऑन फॅमिली ग्रोथ और सोशल इकॉनॉमिक और सोशल स्टेटस whatever may be, that hypothesis is considered as a complex hypothesis. बरोबर आहे, म्हणजे तुम्ही विचार करता ते बरोबर आहे, म्हणजे 2 पेक्षा जास्त घटकांचा तुम्ही विचार करायचा. बरोबर आहे.
ओके सर.
येस.
हो सर. हो.
येस. एनी डिफिकल्टी रिगार्डिंग द सिंपल हायपोथेसिस और कॉम्प्लेक्स हायपोथेसिस? यस. ओम प्रकाश, पवन जी, सतीश, विठ्ठल, समजलं का झोपी गेले? यस. यस बोराडे जी.
यस सर.
हात वरी केलता बोराडे जी, आहे का या प्रश्न? यस. What was the difference between anyone tell me what was the difference between simple hypothesis and complex hypothesis? कोण फरक सांगतं साध्या परिकल्पनेमध्ये आणि संयुक्त परिकल्पनेमध्ये? Yes, anyone tell me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, welcome.
Simple hypothesis, it is the relationship between one variables independent and one variables and independent variables.
Yes.
And the complex hypothesis is there two independent variable and one dependent or 2 independent variables.
Yes, more than 2, whatever may be, 3, 4, 5.
More
that,
than,
yes,
yes.
That depend upon your views. That depend upon your research area, isn't it? But basic is more than 2, whatever may be, 3, 4, 5. Sometimes you choose a big area, big factors, isn't it?
Yes,
Suppose a crisis of or war, the impact of war in Yemen on a social growth, economical growth, or any other factors, banking sector, or other factors, means so many 3, 4, 5 factors you select, and that factors you consider as a research variables. That is called a complex hypothesis, isn't it? Yes. Yes, Ashwini ji.
Yes, sir.
Are you
Yes,
understand the concept of complex hypothesis?
Yes, sir.
Yes, तुम्ही उदाहरण सांगू शकता का मला एखादं?
The impact of infrastructure and education on the students' behavior.
Yes, बराबर है. More than 2 variables you use in that statement, it is called a complex hypothesis, isn't it? And third one is a empirical hypothesis, isn't it? Empirical hypothesis means your research objective or research aims means to find out empirical data, to search empirical data, means step by step. That time researcher use a empirical hypothesis, means you find out the primary sectors, secondary sectors, or tertiary sectors consumers. At that time, you want to use, or researcher use a empirical hypothesis, means step by step, first step, second step, third step, means you want to deals horizontally, isn't it? Empirically, means whatever may be growth of that industries, first year, second year, third year, fourth year, fifth year. Okay, that type of research design you want to use, you want to choose in your research process, that is called a empirical research hypothesis. Means 5 standard student, 10th standard student, UG student, PG student, or post graduation student, or PhD scholar, that type of data you want to create in your research process at a time. That time, researcher use a empirical research hypothesis. Whatever may be a research variables, 2 variables or 3 variables, doesn't matter. But at a time, you collect a longitudinal data. You collect a longitudinal research variables. Means primary sectors consumers, secondary sectors consumers, tertiary sectors consumers, consumer satisfaction. Isn't it? That type of research design you want to use in your research process. At that time, researchers select a empirical hypothesis. Means your research data, your research variables, you formulate a longitudinally. That time, researcher formulate a empirical hypothesis, isn't it? Means primary level student, secondary level student, college level student, or PG level student, or PhD scholar, that type of data you want to create in at a time. That time researcher use a empirical hypothesis. उदग्र स्वरूपाची किंवा उभ्या स्वरूपाची ज्या वेळेस माहिती आपण संकलित करत असतो, that time researcher use a empirical data. Means micro industries, middle industries, or big industries. At a time you want to deal 3 type of industries in your research process. The impact of international strategies on the micro level industries, middle level industries, or big industries. That type of research hypothesis is called a empirical hypothesis, isn't it? Any policy making decision, the impact of Indian government policy on, the impact of Indian government policy on micro industries, middle industries, or big industries. That type of hypothesis is called a empirical hypothesis. म्हणजे लहान घटकावर काय परिणाम होणार आहे, मधल्या घटकावर काय परिणाम होणार आहे, आणि मोठ्या घटकावर काय परिणाम होणार आहे, हे तुम्ही ॲट अ टाइम पाहणार आहेत कोणत्या एखाद्या गव्हर्नमेंटच्या निर्णयाचा. Isn't it? The impact of digital currencies on small family members in as far as concern of economical income views, middle families or big economical families, isn't it? That type of hypothesis is called a empirical hypothesis. Empirical hypothesis in one depending variables or independent variables doesn't matter. The impact of that is very different. That is very layer, or that is sometime layer impact, or sometime one is independent variables or so many is dependent variables. That time researcher use a empirical hypothesis. म्हणजे शासनाच्या धोरणाचा लहान शेतकऱ्यावर, मध्यम शेतकऱ्यावर व मोठ्या शेतकऱ्यावर काय परिणाम होणार आहे हे तुम्ही पाहणार आहात. That is called a empirical hypothesis, isn't it? Whatever may be. Sometimes suppose 3 types of research scholars attend a coursework online. One is regional student, regional research scholars. One is out of Maharashtra research scholars, and third one is out of India research scholar. The impact of teaching language of teacher on a local research scholar, or out of Maharashtra research scholar, or out of India research scholar, that is called a empirical hypothesis. Empirical hypothesis means whatever may be. More than 2 or more than 3, 4 is depending variables. That time should use a empirical hypothesis. Or your research objectives or your research aim to find out, to collect a longitudinal type of data. Means economical growth of first 5 year, second 5 year, and third 5 year. These are the 3 stages of that bank I want to deal.
Because 15-16% से तो मानुस उसके डब्बे खरगोश
यस रेणुका जी, काही प्रश्न आहे का? कारण फक्त तुम्ही डिव्हाइस जॉईन केलेला आहे, कारण ह्या 3 वेळेस तुमचं डिव्हाइस पण दुसऱ्याचेच कोणते जॉईन केलेलं आहे असं आहे. यस रेणुका जी, आर यू इन क्लास? यस, एनी डिफिकल्टी? ठीक है. Yes, are you understand the empirical research hypothesis? The concept of empirical research hypothesis? Anyone tell me? Yes, Nilesh ji.
Yes, sir. Understandable. Yeah, understandable. Yeah.
Nilesh ji.
Yes, sir.
लक्षात आलं का? डोक्यावरून जाते कन्फ्युजन है सॉल्यूशन का पता नहीं, ऐसा कुछ हो रहा क्या पवन जी?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, anyone tell me one example regarding a empirical research hypothesis? कोण सांगू शकेल? Yes, Suresh.
Hello, sir.
Yes, yes, loudly.
Education policy. Education policy चा परिणाम.
Yes, the impact of new education policy on primary sectors, primary education, secondary education, college education. Yes, sir. बरोबर आहे. म्हणजे नवीन शैक्षणिक धोरणाचा प्राथमिक स्तरावर, माध्यमिक स्तरावर, महाविद्यालयीन स्तरावर
होणारा
परिणाम. यस, दॅट इज अ एम्पिरिकल. बरोबर आहे, अगदी अचूक तुम्ही सांगितलेलं आहे. यस पवन जी. यस विठ्ठल, वेलकम सर.
सर एम्पेरिकल हायपोथेसिस मध्ये जसं की रेपो रेट मध्ये जर चेंजेस झाले तर मग त्याच्यामध्ये अप्पर क्लास असेल, लोअर क्लास असेल किंवा मिडल क्लास असेल, त्यांच्या उत्पन्नावरती जो होणारा परिणाम आहे तो एम्पेरिकल हायपोथेसिसचं उदाहरण असू शकतं ना सर?
यस यस यस, किंवा क्लासलेस सुद्धा असेल. क्लास 4च्या सुद्धा खाली काही लोक आहेत, त्याला बीपीएल वगैरे आपण म्हणतो.
बीपीएल एपीएल.
हा, बीपीएल एपीएल, बरोबर आहे. हे सुद्धा एम्पेरिकलचं उदाहरण आहे. अगदी अचूक म्हणजे तुम्ही सांगितलेलं आहे. Yes, Pawan ji, yes, welcome.
Cost of productions. Okay.
Yes.
Prices of factor cost, impact on industrial goods and consumer goods.
Yes, बरोबर आहे. हा पण एम्पेरिकल होऊ शकतो. यस, म्हणजे तुम्ही त्या अनुषंगाने आता विचार करतायत. म्हणजे यू आर आयडियल रिसर्चर, व्हॉट एव्हर मे बी, इट डझंट मॅटर, बट कन्सेप्च्युअल अंडरस्टँडिंग इज मोस्ट इम्पॉर्टंट. म्हणजे तुम्हाला संकल्पना कळाली पाहिजे. आणि तुम्ही जेवढी जास्त पुस्तकं वाचवाल तेवढं जास्त काय, प्रॅक्टिकल नॉलेज आर डिफरंट अँड बुकिश नॉलेज आर डिफरंट, इजंट इट? in your research process, practical knowledge is essential, conceptual understanding is essential more than bookish knowledge. Suppose समजा हे निलेश सर आहेत. निलेश सरांनी काय केलं की हाऊ टू लर्न अ स्विमिंग, purchase one book and whole night he read all books and next day he jump in a river. Is it possible? म्हणजे रात्रभर पुस्तक वाचवलं आणि दॅट इज व्हेरी इझिली. त्याने सांगितलं की खूप सोपं आहे. निलेश सरांनी सांगितलं एक हात हलवायचा, दुसरा हात हलवायचा, दुसरा पाय हलवायचा, तिसरा पाय हलवायचा आणि पोहणं येतं. बुकिश नॉलेज आर डिफरंट. किंवा आपल्या त्या अनुराधा मॅडम किंवा अश्विनी मॅडमने काय केलं की पाककलेचे एक उत्तम पुस्तक आणलं आणि हाऊ टू प्रिपेअर अ वेल बिर्याणी. इज इट पॉसिबल? म्हणजे बिर्याणी कशी बनवायची त्यांनी रात्रभर वाचवलं आणि दुसऱ्या दिवशी बिर्याणी बनवली. बिर्याणी बनवा येईल का? नाहीये. की सेम वे कि practical knowledge is different and bookish knowledge is different. As far as the concern of researcher views, practically is most important. Means conceptual understanding is most important rather than bookish knowledge. म्हणजे तुम्हाला संकल्पना समजली की कुठलंही पुस्तक वाचवायचं गरज नाहीये, isn't it? आणि academical qualification doesn't matter. That is no relationship between academical ability and research ability. म्हणजे कागदाच्या पुतळ्या तुमच्याकडे किती असले तरी रिसर्च ॲबिलिटी आहे असं सांगता येत नाही, इजंट इट? कारण माझ्याकडे त्या सर्व कागदाच्या पुतळ्या आहेत. म्हणजे 2-3 विषयामध्ये पीएचडी आहे, रिसर्च पेटंट आहे, प्रोजेक्ट आहेत, पण रिसर्च ॲबिलिटी आहे की नाही हे सांगता येत नाही. देर इज नो रिलेशनशिप बिटवीन academical ability and research ability. Research ability are different and academical ability are different. Sometimes illiterate persons formulate a well hypothesis ट्रू हायपोथेसिस, व्हॅलिड हायपोथेसिस, इजंट इट? म्हणजे आकाशवाणी आपलं सांगतं किंवा मग हवामान खातं सांगतं की पुढील 5 दिवसामध्ये मराठवाड्यामध्ये पाऊस पडण्याची शक्यता आहे. हे कोण सांगतं? हवामान खातं सांगतं, सिनियर सायंटिस्ट सांगतात. आणि शेतकरी आमचं सांगतं मालक इंद्रधनुष्य निघालेला आहे, पुढच्या 5 दिवसात कसंच पाऊस पडत नाही. आणि त्या शेतकऱ्याचं खरं ठरतं. ट्रू हायपोथेसिस means that illiterate farmer formulate a true hypothesis, valid hypothesis. Sometimes young scientist hypothesis was rejected, was not significant, but sometimes that illiterate farmer formulate a ideal hypothesis, true hypothesis or valid hypothesis because of his previous experiences, previous scientific analysis of that condition. That is the foundation of your research hypothesis. That is essential. Your academical ability are not essential. Your thinking ability, your logical ability, your observation ability, that natural ability is most important rather than bookish knowledge, rather than your academical performance, isn't it? Any difficulty regarding a empirical research hypothesis? Are you understand very clearly?
Very clear.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Next one is a null hypothesis. Null hypothesis means you select a 2 type of sectors. At that time, researcher use a null hypothesis. Means you select a 2 strata in your research process. Means rural peoples and urban peoples, literate peoples or illiterate peoples, male and female. These are the 2 groups or 2 layer, 2 strata generally used in your research process. That time researcher use a null hypothesis. Foreign student and Indian student. The ability, research ability of foreign student and Indian student of Nanded University. That time you want to create a 2 state, use 2 layer, 2 strata, 2 group. That time researcher use a null hypothesis. That time a researcher use a null hypothesis. The impact of one hypothesis, one independent hypothesis on 2 different hypotheses, 2 independent variables, 2 layer, 2 group. That was mentioned in null hypothesis. Null hypothesis means there was no significant impact on that 2 group or on that 2 layer, on that 2 factors that mentioned in a null hypothesis. म्हणजे एका घटकाचा 2 घटकांवर होणारा फरक हा लक्षणीय नसतो असं ज्या परिकल्पनेमध्ये दर्शवलेलं असतं त्या परिकल्पनेला शून्य परिकल्पना आहे असं म्हणतात. There was no significant impact on a 2 group that was mentioned not significantly in that statement. It is called a null hypothesis. Null hypothesis means whatever may be a impact that was same, means in that position researcher are neutral, means whatever may be a state government policy, the impact of rural people and urban people, that was not significant. The impact of social media on male student behavior and student female behavior, that was not significant. That is called a null hypothesis. The impact of one independent variables on 2 group, that was same, indicate in that statement. Not significant means same. लक्षणीय नाही याचा अर्थ काय होतो? सारखाच आहे. परिणाम जो आहे सारखाच आहे. बरोबर आहे? That was mentioned in a null hypothesis. म्हणजे काय? In null hypothesis very easily, clearly mentioned की null hypothesis की your research area that was 2 layer, that was 2 group, that was 2 strata, whatever may be. The impact of one independent variables on 2 dependent factors, that was same, indicate in that statement. It is called a null hypothesis, isn't it? Means the impact of social media on foreign student behavior and Indian student behavior, that was not significant. Not significant is it essential in null hypothesis. That word is essential in null hypothesis. That is called a null hypothesis, isn't it? म्हणजे परिणाम जो आहे सारखाच पडणार आहे किंवा लक्षणीय फरक पडणार नाहीये. नॉट सिग्निफिकंट मीन्स 19-20 आहे, सारखाच आहे, isn't it? The same impact is there that was mentioned in null hypothesis. It is called a null hypothesis, isn't it? Are you understand the concept of null hypothesis? Suppose your research area, your research design divide, that time you have to choose a two layer, two strata or two areas. In your, suppose a nationalized bank and non-nationalized bank, the impact of Indian government policy on a nationalized bank or non-nationalized bank, that was same. That type of hypothesis, it is called a null hypothesis. It is called a null hypothesis. म्हणजे राष्ट्रीयकृत बँकावर आणि अराष्ट्रीयकृत बँकांवर भारतीय गव्हर्नमेंटचा किंवा एखाद्या निर्णयाचा सारखाच परिणाम पडणार आहे किंवा लक्षणीय परिणाम पडणार नाहीये, अशी जी विधान आहे त्या विधानाला काय म्हणायचं की नल हायपोथेसिस म्हणायचं. Isn't it? Are you understand the concept of null hypothesis? Suppose same way, last time I think Suresh sir said the impact of NEP on a rural student or urban student, that was same impact is there. That statement, it is called a null hypothesis. Suppose your research area divided into two layer, two group, that time, only that time, researcher use a null hypothesis. Isn't it? Registered worker or non-registered worker, the impact of any strategy on a registered employee or non-registered employee. That type of researcher or research area generally use a null hypothesis. Yes, विठ्ठल sir, समजलं का? Null hypothesis म्हणजे काय? अनुराधा जी. Yes, Pawan sir, anyone tell me? उदाहरण कोण सांगू शकेल?
सर समजलेलं आहे. एक साधं एक्झाम्पल आहे सर. एक मिठाचं उदाहरण किंवा काळी पेटीचं उदाहरण.
हा,
म्हणजे मिठाच्या किमतीमध्ये किती जरी वाढ झाली तर जनरली ते यूज सारखंच होणार आहे.
बरोबर आहे, सेमच होणार आहे. येस, ओमप्रकाश जी, निकिता जी, डागा सर.
Sir, it's ma'am.
Okay. Daga ma'am, are you understand?
No, sir. Actually, I have a confusion when you explain null hypothesis.
Which confusion?
Sir, actually, null hypothesis is never made. It is automatically made. What we define is alternative hypothesis. I might be wrong. I'm just trying to make my confusion clear with you.
Okay? No. Null
is it okay to express it? I'm just trying to.
Yes. Hello. Ma'am, your voice is breaking. Yes. Hello. Hello. Yes, Pawan sir, आवाज येतोय?
Yes sir.
हाँ, कदाचित हाँ, डागा मॅडम तुमच्याकडे. मॅम, युअर व्हॉइस इज ब्रेकिंग. Null hypothesis means structure of null hypothesis. There was not significant difference.
Yeah, you are correct, undoubtedly. What I'm saying is that when we make a hypothesis, any hypothesis, for the type of discussed before.
Yes.
Okay. When we make hypothesis, it is alternative hypothesis, and at the same time, we have to test our hypothesis and see whether it is correct or not. So, if it is not correct, the opposite hypothesis is null hypothesis.
No.
We don't have to make it. It is automatically made.
No. It is not automatically made. Your conceptual understanding is wrong. You see various YouTube channel. You see our university YouTube channel, or you see various audio or video recorded available on null hypothesis on our university website. In null hypothesis, if your null hypothesis is rejected, that time alternative hypothesis researcher selected. Means your prediction is wrong. That time alternative hypothesis is researcher accept. Isn't it? Means already you formulate the null hypothesis and your null hypothesis is rejected. That time alternative hypothesis researcher select.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yes, little bit confusion.
Yeah, sir. It's okay. Thank you for clearing it. That
Yes.
is what I'm expecting.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
You see a various YouTube channel that available on English medium, Hindi medium, or Marathi medium. Conceptual understanding. You see a null hypothesis, type of null hypothesis, characteristics of null hypothesis. Yes.
Okay, sir.
Okay.
Sure. Okay. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much.
Yes.
sir.
Yes.
I think is there relationship between null hypothesis and alternative hypothesis?
Yes,
When
sir.
I make test for null hypothesis, if rejected, directly I will go to alternative hypothesis.
Yes. Is it correct? Means your null hypothesis,
Okay.
your null hypothesis is rejected. That time researchers use a alternative hypothesis, isn't it? Suppose I was
Okay.
formulate there was not significant impact of male student learner or female student learner after the examination. That was a significant impact on there. That time your null hypothesis is rejected and alternative hypothesis is accepted, isn't it? Firstly, I will decide that was not significant impact of teacher teaching on a male student learner or female student learner. That was same. Before the experiment, I state that the teacher teaching impact on male student learner and female student learner, that was same. That is called a null hypothesis, isn't it? But after the examination, that was significant impact is there. Means male student is more mark and female student is low mark. That is a significant impact. That time researcher reject the null hypothesis and accept the alternative hypothesis. Previous condition, before the examination, I formulate a null hypothesis, but at the time of testing of null hypothesis, my prediction is wrong. That time researcher use a alternative hypothesis, isn't it? म्हणजे मी अगोदर काय केलं की शिक्षकाचा शिकवण्याचा विद्यार्थ्याच्या मार्कांवर, मुलांच्या मार्कांवर आणि मुलींच्या मार्कांवर फरक पडणार नाहीये. नंतर परीक्षा घेतली, नंतर काय झालं की मुलांना मार्क जास्त पडले आणि मुलींना मार्क कमी पडले. म्हणजे अंदाज चुकला. अगोदर अंदाज शून्य प्रकार मानला होता आणि अंदाज चुकला. म्हणजे मला असं नंतर लिहावं लागेल की मुलींपेक्षा ही मुलांचे मार्क जास्त पडले. दॅट इज अल्टरनेटिव्ह हायपोथेसिस. मीन्स माय प्रेडिक्शन इज रॉंग. कि sometime some researcher prediction is wrong. That time researcher use a alternative hypothesis. Means your prediction is different and actual condition is different. That time your prediction is rejected and actual condition accept. That is called a alternative hypothesis. समजा मला वाटलं होतं आता हे पवन सर आहेत, व्हिडिओ सुरू केला त्यांनी, हे कोर्सवर पास होतील. मी काय सांगितलं की कोर्सवर पास होतील, हा माझा अंदाज आहे. आणि नंतर ते कोर्सवर नापास झाले. ऍक्च्युअल कंडिशन वेगळी आहे. मग मला काय, माझा अंदाज खोटा ठरला असं सांगावं लागतं आणि मार्क मेमो दाखवावं लागतं की पवन सर नापास झालेले आहेत. दॅट इज अल्टरनेटिव्ह हायपोथेसिस. दॅट इज अल्टरनेटिव्ह हायपोथेसिस. इज इट करेक्ट? आर यू अंडरस्टँड? My prediction to M&A student may be a qualifying coursework examination, but after the declared result of that coursework, both are fail. Means my prediction is rejected and actual condition are accepted. That is called a alternative hypothesis, isn't it? मला वाटलं होतं की आता 8,000 भाव आहे, नंतर आणखी 2 महिन्यानंतर किंवा 20 तारखेनंतर कापसाचा भाव 10,000 होईल, परंतु नंतर ते 8,000 वरून पुन्हा 7,000 वर गेला. Means my prediction is wrong. Actual condition that may be accepted. That is called a alternative hypothesis. In same way, market strategy मध्ये असं असतं, more risk, more benefit, no risk, no benefit, isn't it? Means your hypothesis, whatever may be a hypothesis, sometimes your hypothesis was fail, unpredictable, means your prediction is not true. That time researcher use a alternative hypothesis. बरोबर आहे? म्हणजे तुमचा अंदाज चुकला आणि वास्तविक सत्य जे आहे ते सत्य तुम्हाला मान्य करावं लागतं. ते म्हणजे काय? अल्टरनेटिव्ह. इज इट करेक्ट? मीन्स ऍक्च्युअल कंडिशन आफ्टर द टेस्टिंग ऑफ युअर रिसर्च हायपोथेसिस, मीन्स युअर प्रेडिक्टेशन आर डिफरंट अँड ऍक्च्युअल कंडिशन आर डिफरंट. बिफोर द एक्सपेरिमेंट की सेम वे किंवा डॉक्टर सुद्धा काय करतात, समजा हा प्रवीण सर रात्री बिर्याणी खाली आणि पोट दुखलं, त्यांनी काय केले, डॉक्टरकडे गेले. डॉक्टर काय करतात की प्रिडिक्टेशन करतात, अंदाज मांडतात. दॅट इज वन टाइप ऑफ हायपोथेसिस. ही एक गोळी घ्या, ही एक गोळी घ्या आणि 2 दिवसानंतर मला 3 दिवसानंतर सांगा. जर राहिलं तर येऊ नका, जर नाही राहिलं तर पुन्हा या. बरोबर आहे. त्यांचा काय तो अंदाज आहे. दॅट इज अ वन टाइप ऑफ प्रिडिक्टेशन. Suppose your prediction, the doctor's prediction is true, that time you accept the null hypothesis. Suppose your the doctor's hypothesis was not significant, fails or unpredictable, that time alternative hypothesis. मग दुसऱ्यांदा पवन सर जाणार आणि म्हणणार पोट दुखणं राहिलं नाहीये, दुसऱ्या गोळ्या द्या. That is called a alternative hypothesis, isn't it? Are you understand? Yes, Ashwini ji.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes.
Darshana ji. Snehal ma'am.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Nikita ji.
Yes, sir.
Yes. And last one is a causal hypothesis. Causal hypothesis means whatever may be the relationship between cause and impact. कार्याच्या पाठीमागे कोणतं कारण आहे. Generally, that causal hypothesis used in a third type of causal research design, or generally use a criminal psychology or criminology. की म्हणजे नेमके म्हणजे एखादा खून केलेला आहे, त्या खुनाच्या ह्याच्यावर फिंगरप्रिंट कोणते आहेत, टू फाइंड आउट द रिलेशनशिप बिटवीन कॉज अँड इम्पॅक्ट. दॅट टाइम रिसर्चर यूज अ कॉजल हायपोथेसिस, इजंट इट. म्हणजे ऑलरेडी समटाइम नॅचरल एव्हिडन्सेस ऑलरेडी डन इन देअर, की म्हणजे कोर्सवर पवन सर नापास झालेत आणि मग पवन सर नापास झाल्याच्या नंतर पवन सर का नापास झाले, दॅट वॉज कॉजल हायपोथेसिस. पवन सर नापास होण्याचे कारण काय आहे, त्यांची पत्नी त्यांना जास्त भांडत होती का म्हणून त्यांचा अभ्यास झाला नाहीये, किंवा त्यांची मनस्थिती बरोबर नव्हती का, व्हॉटएव्हर मे बी दॅट रिझन. यू फाइंड आउट द आफ्टर दॅट इन्सिडेंट what was the cause and impact of that the relationship between cause and impact. You want to analyze that type of hypothesis, that is called a causal hypothesis, isn't it? किंवा एखादे मीडिया असेल, प्रिंट मीडिया, ऍक्शन झाल्यानंतर काय करतो तू सांगतं, मग ही चूक कोणाची आहे, 4 व्हीलर वाल्याची आहे का 2 व्हीलर वाल्याची आहे. व्हॉट वॉज द रिझन ऑफ दॅट कॉज अँड इफेक्ट. म्हणजे घटनेच्या पाठीमागे कोणतं कारण आहे, कार्याच्या पाठीमागे कोणतं कारण आहे, यू फाइंड आउट, इजंट इट. की समटाइम ही एक घटना झाली होती की आफ्टर 23 इयर, मी अगोदर सुद्धा सांगितलं तुम्हाला की एका तो मुलगा आहे त्यांनी कोर्टामध्ये केस टाकली आणि एनडी तिवारी हे म्हणजे काय पॅरेंट आहेत असं सांगितलं होतं. आणि मग कोर्टाने निर्णय दिला की त्या मुलांची आणि त्या एनडी तिवारी जो मंत्री आहे त्यांचे काय करावे, डीएनए टेस्ट करावी. आणि डीएनए टेस्ट केल्यानंतर दोघांची सेम टेस्ट निघाली आणि नंतर मग काय सांगितलं की ही इज अ बायोलॉजिकल पॅरेंट ऑफ दॅट चाइल्ड. म्हणजे काय, कार्याच्या पाठीमागे कोणतं कारण आहे हे फाइंड आउट केलं. आणि नंतर मग त्यानं संपत्ती वगैरे अर्धी मिळवली, हे झालं तो भाग वेगळा कुठली असेल, किंवा नापास झाल्याची कारण कोणती आहेत, किंवा मग रात्री झोप येत नाहीये आमच्या ते निलेश सरांना. व्हॉट वॉज द रिझन, यू फाइंड आउट बिहाइंड दॅट कॉज अँड इम्पॅक्ट. That time researcher use a causal hypothesis. Generally, that type of hypothesis generally used in a action research, isn't it? Action research म्हणजे जे काही टास्क आहेत त्या टास्क मिळाल्याच्या नंतर काय म्हणतो आपण, कॉजल रिसर्च आपण विचारात घेत असतो. किंवा जनरली सायन्स अँड टेक्नॉलॉजी किंवा मग नॅचरल सायन्सेस और क्रिमिनल सायन्सेस, दॅट रिसर्चर्स जनरली यूज अ कॉजल हायपोथेसिस. Yes, simple hypothesis, complex hypothesis, empirical hypothesis, null hypothesis, alternative hypothesis, and causal hypothesis. These are the 6 types of research hypothesis generally used in each and every research area. Any difficulty regarding all that 6 types of research hypothesis? Yes?
No, sir.
No, sir. No difficulty.
No, sir. No, sir.
सर्वांना समजलं?
हो, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir. Can I ask you one question?
Yes, yes, surely. Welcome.
Sir, which type we can use in the commerce and management hypothesis? All or only is there some specific
Yes, sir.
hypothesis for us?
Generally, you find out the previous research report. in commerce and management. Generally, commerce and management, simple hypothesis or complex hypothesis. These are the two type of hypotheses most popular in commerce and management sciences. You find out, don't believe me. You find out previous research report and previous types of research hypotheses in commerce and management. That is a basic characteristics of ideal researcher. Don't believe on any person, isn't it?
Okay, sir. Okay.
You find out previous 10 research report, 15 research report, 13 research report. Means Dr. Gingine, whatever may be whatever may be say, don't believe on Dr. Gingine or don't believe on any research person. You cross check. Yes.
Depend. Let's depend about of last study.
Yes.
When I read about the study, my relationship, my study, I will select. I will see and I will decide it.
Yes. Suppose whatever maybe you choose, you select your research area in commerce and management. A previous research report, you find out your previous research hypothesis, which type of hypothesis generally used in commerce and management in particular sector, isn't it? Yes, are you understand?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yes, Pawan sir, आहे काय अडचण? Any difficulty?
No, sir. No, sir.
कोणाला आहे का? सुरेश सर?
नाही सर, नाही.
नाही सर.
सुरेश सर, जर अडचण नसेल, तुमचं माईक चालूच राहू द्या. सुरेश सर, आवाज येतोय?
ओके. हो, येते सर.
तुम्ही 6 प्रकारचे हायपोथेसिस मला लाऊडली सांगा. You tell me a 6 type of research hypothesis loudly.
एक सर, नल हायपोथेसिस, कॅज्युअल हायपोथेसिस, त्याच्यानंतर सिंपल हायपोथेसिस, अल्टरनेटिव्ह हायपोथेसिस, अल्टरनेटिव्ह हायपोथेसिस, देन किती झाले सर?
4 झाले.
ऍक्शन, एक मिनिट सर. प्रिव्हियस आयडियल.
You are an ideal student.
4 झाले का?
Hearing and forgetting.
नाही सर.
4 झाले. कोण सांगतं? Yes.
Research.
Anyone tell me 6. Yes, Prashant sir, welcome.
Simple hypothesis, hypothesis,
Directional hypothesis, non-directional hypothesis, non-causal
hypothesis, null hypothesis, and last one, causal hypothesis.
Yes. 6 ला 6 तुमच्या लक्षात आले पाहिजे. बरोबर आहे. म्हणजे हे जे आहे हे चांगल्या संशोधकाचं काम आहे. तुमचं लक्षात ठेवणं हे तुमचं काम आहे. कारण एक्झाम मला द्यायची नाहीये. किंवा मी शिकवलेलं बरोबर आहे का चूक आहे हे सुद्धा क्रॉस चेक करून पाहणं तुमचं काम आहे. That is a researcher responsibility. You want to check that evidences, whatever may be, I will provide that evidences. You want to check as per the concern of researcher responsibility, isn't it? हे जे आहेत हे 6 म्हणजे कोणीही शिकवलं, तुमच्या गाईडने जरी सांगितलं तरी ते क्रॉस करून घेणं हे तुमचं काम आहे, तुमची जबाबदारी आहे. उद्याच्या नापास जर झाला तर ही माझी जबाबदारी नाहीये. ठीक आहे. ओके, धन्यवाद. इथं थांबूयात. काही अडचण असेल तर तुम्ही विचारू शकता. यस, एनी डिफिकल्टी?
नो सर.
ओके, थँक्यू. ओके, थँक्यू व्हेरी मच. दिनेश सर आहात का आपण? का बंद करू मी?
हो सर, हो आहे.
ओके ओके,
थँक्यू सर.
थँक्यू.
थँक्यू सर.
Thank you so much, sir.
All of you informed that I am just right now